I'm investigative journalist Molly Barrows. For years, I've covered the stories that made headlines in Northwest Florida and all along the Gulf Coast. Murders, missing persons, and mysteries of all kinds. These cases are far from over for many victims because the full story has yet to surface. Join me for Gulf Coast Confidential, where I dive into the saltier side of the South and expose the lies, greed, and corruption that often weighs down the truth. It's time to turn the tide and get a shot at justice. Hey, I'm Molly Barrows, and welcome to the Gulf Coast Confidential podcast, where we cover some of the most scandalous crimes and cases that bubble up in Northwest Florida and beyond. Joining me to talk about what we call these what the feezy cases is Pam Hill, a pharmacist and advocate for victims because she herself has experienced violent crime in her own family. So what's up, Pam? Are you ready for this episode?
I am. I'm always interested in love triangles because they work so well.
I know. Thank goodness, I guess. Otherwise, we wouldn't have so many
Right.
topics to talk about on Gulf Coast
Love
Confidential.
pentagon, love triangle, something.
No.
I'm ready.
Well, they need to be love triangle stop signs, really.
Love stop signs.
And here's why. So this episode is called Diaper Wearing Astronaut, an out of this world love triangle. We're talking about the headline making case of Lisa Nowak. She was an accomplished astronaut, but it was not her visit to space that captured the attention of the country in 2007. It was her cross-country drive to kidnap a romantic rival, supposedly wearing space diapers, that did it. I remember when this story happened. Do you remember it, Pam?
I do. Mm-hmm.
I know. It was so crazy. It made such big headlines at the time. And for those who don't remember or aren't familiar with this case, here's a recap. It was February of 2007, and Lisa Nowak is said to have worn a space diaper so she wouldn't have to stop on her drive from Houston to Orlando to confront her ex-boyfriend's new girlfriend. So mind you, Nowak was then a 44-year-old married mother of three. She'd been having an affair with this guy. He was her coworker, 42-year-old Navy Commander William Olfaline, for several years. He said his relationship with Nowak was, quote unquote, somewhat exclusive until he started seeing 30-year-old Colleen Shipman. She was a U.S. Air Force captain and an engineer based at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida. So when the relationship became more intense, Olfaline broke it off with Nowak, he said. Well, police say that's when Nowak found romantic emails between her former lover and Shipman while going through Olfaline's computer. And that's when she decided to make this drive to Orlando and confront Shipman. She made this 900-mile drive in about 14 hours and told police in a report that she wore space diapers so she wouldn't have to stop for bathroom breaks. So she actually arrived at the Orlando International Airport early on February 7th, 2007. She was armed with a steel mallet, a BB gun, a 4-inch knife, large trash bags. This is all according to police. And she approached Shipman in the airport parking lot after apparently following her from inside the airport. She was wearing a dark wig, sunglasses, and a trench coat at the time. And when the younger woman got into her car in this parking lot area, Shipman ran up, sort of banging on her window, claiming she needed a ride. She said that's when Shipman cracked the window open and Nowak pepper sprayed her. So Shipman drove off, let police know what was going on. Authorities said that they got there in time to see Nowak throwing her wig and a BB gun into a garbage can. And when they arrested her, she claimed her intention was just to confront Shipman about her relationship with Olfaline. But prosecutors allege Nowak had a well-thought-out plan to actually harm Shipman, and they charged her with attempted murder and kidnapping, which are charges that were eventually reduced to burglary and misdemeanors. She pleaded guilty in 2009 and was sentenced to a year's probation, community service, as well as counseling. So it's a fascinating case. I hadn't thought about this in years, not since it happened, but I remember that's all anybody talked about for a while.
Oh, yeah, because it's so ridiculous. I mean, and that having that, what they call, like Mark Furman had referred to all that stuff she had in the bag, the duffel bag, as a murder kit. You know, and we remember Mark Furman. I don't know if we want to give too much validity to what he said, but he was a policeman. He put it together. And, you know, she was the first, Lisa Nowak was the first astronaut dismissed from NASA. That is, if you look up, Google Lisa Nowak or say astronaut diaper, she's notorious. It pops up there. She also claims I did not have a diaper because she called it.
I saw that.
Yeah, maximum absorbency product or garment or something like that. But in the literature, it says that the astronauts are issued GI astronaut diapers, government issued astronaut diapers. So anyway, she had something to help her bladder because she did not want to stop. She was going after his new lover, new girlfriend with a frenzy. And it's diabolical once we try to break it all down.
I know. And I was looking up what space diapers look like.
Yeah.
So I happen to have one of these just regular, I guess briefs, if
Depends.
you will, for, when my mom needed them.
Mhm.
So, these are just regular. They kind of fit like underwear, if anybody has ever had to take care of an elderly relative or somebody who just had some incontinence issues. These are basically what they look like. So I looked up what a space diaper looks like, and they look like padded biker shorts, basically.
Okay. All right.
So, they go up to your waist and down a little bit to about mid-thigh or less, but all that's padded. So they say that, it's normal for astronauts to wear these because if they're, doing in space, if you will, or even, training, then they're in these outfits for so long. Outfits, you know what I'm saying? Like they're in their, right, they're in their spacesuits for so long that this is what they need. So I thought that was pretty interesting. I guess that was handy. And if you're determined, she was a smart person. Clearly, you don't become an astronaut by being, but apparently she didn't rely on her reason and logic when she was making some of the decisions to track down her romantic rival.
No, she was using feelings and anger and she wanted to win. It is hard to become an astronaut. It takes 10 years. You got 4 years of college, 2 years of a master's degree, a professional degree of 2 years, and that has to be in STEM programs, and then 2 years in the NASA Corps. So, put it all together, 10 years. And back then, I was looking up, how much do astronauts make? And so I said, well, let me look back when, basically Neil Armstrong was an astronaut. And that was in 1969. Astronauts back then made about $27,000 a year. So, he's the person that walked on the moon, 2.5 hours on the moon. He got paid about $33 to walk 2.5 hours on the moon.
My goodness.
So now the astronauts, they make about $190,000. But that's okay and good because once they're astronauts, they can sell books or do speaking things. The bonus part is the allure. Plus, there's not that many people that have been astronauts.
I know. And really, she went into space. I mean, not every astronaut even gets to go into space. And she was one that actually did.
Yeah, and she operated the robotic arms.
Yeah, she was a mission specialist in robotics. And apparently that's when she met Opheline. They trained alongside one another in the NASA Space Shuttle program. And Opheline told police that their relationship actually didn't begin until 2004, but that it was relatively exclusive for the few years that they were together. And then he said he met Shipman, and as their relationship, quote unquote, intensified, that's when he broke it off with Nowak. And I guess she just wasn't having it.
Yeah.
But before that, friends and family said she was a dedicated mom. She had neighbors over for Easter brunches. She had hobbyists like bicycling. She liked to grow African violets and collect rubber stamps. And I don't know if you've ever tried to grow African violets, but that's hard. I mean, she's an astronaut and she grows African violets.
Yeah.
This girl had it going on
Do your thing.
until she got involved with that dude.
Yeah.
So that's a shame that she let that get the better of her.
Well, also, I was thinking about this. She brought that little kit and everything and disguises in a wig and a hooded trench coat and stuff. When she made sure the reason she couldn't stop, she had to get to the airport in time to meet Colleen Shipman's flight coming in, and she watched her deplane, and so she was going to go to the baggage carousel with her, but as luck would have it, Colleen's luggage got lost. So the airlines gave her a little voucher to go get a drink or some food or something, and it was about 2.5 hours. So Lisa Nowak just hung around in that dark wig and her trench coat, and she followed her to the carousel, the luggage carousel. Then she follows her out to the parking deck, and Colleen can hear some little feet running behind her, and she's like, I better get in my car. So she got in her car, and I don't know if she had an awareness that this woman was kind of in their life or not, but she said that she saw her Lisa running to her, that she was acting like she was scared or something was wrong, and she just cracked her window just a little bit. And that's when she put that pepper spray in there and sprayed her. And so she said, I got to get out of here. So she goes down to where you pay. And that's where she told the policeman. And I tell you that because that's going to be important later of what happened there as to how this case ends.
Yeah, that's interesting. And you wonder what would drive somebody to do something like this. Somebody who was clearly intelligent, successful in her career, had two 5-year-old twins at the time and a teenage son, had her own family. She'd been married to her husband about 19 years at this point. And I think lots of couples can relate to just being over your spouse. I mean, you may still think that, highly of them or whatever, but you've fallen out of love. But to go after somebody to this extent, you wonder what went into making him that way. And I was researching a little bit about that, and they said her friends said that she was deeply affected by the 2003 Columbia shuttle explosion. One of her best friends was actually on board, Laurel Clark, and it was just 3 years after that explosion that Nowak went on her first mission in July of 2006 aboard the Space Shuttle Discovery as a mission flight engineer, and she spent almost 2 weeks in space. So, apparently this was a very accomplished lady. She had it all going on. It's just hard to imagine what happened after all of that made her decide that this extramarital affair was the end all and be all of her happiness. Because to me, that's the way she seems to respond when it's slipping through her fingers.
Right. Well, it's a pretty sobering thought to know that you're going up in space after something happened like that to other flights before you, and then you do it and you come back and you're just good at everything you do. But it's very unreasonable to think that every paramour, lover, person I had in my past has to come back to me when I say so. That's pretty arrogant.
Well, and it's interesting, too, that the way she described their relationship to police was, quote, more than a working relationship, but less than a romantic relationship, end quote. Well, dang, if that's how she reacts to less than a romantic relationship, I'd hate to think what she'd do if she was really into somebody.
Right. Well, it makes me think that she's pretty much hedonistic and carnal on stuff like that. It's like you think with your whole self. You can't just go for physical things or people will be locked up like animals. It's just kind of crazy. But
it is interesting to me that she was such a high achiever and very competitive. I think you and I can both relate to that. It takes some dedication to your career and managing your time and balancing family, whether you're married or not, whether you have a significant other or not, whether you have children or not. If you have any kind of a personal life as well as a professional life, then it takes balancing that out. So you just wonder, at what point did she say, what I want is more important than what everybody else wants? Being a mother, being a wife. I think, as I said before, some couples can relate to not necessarily being in love with their significant other or the father or mother of their child, but they still stick it out because they're trying to have some continuity in their lives, some peace, some stability. And she had, two 5-year-old twins. She had a 14-year-old son at the time, and it just seemed like everything else paled in comparison to hanging on to that relationship.
Well, I think it's about almost Charlie Sheen-esque, like I'm winning, and clearly you're not. We saw all that play out in real time, and basically what they found out with her after they did evaluations, because they're like, why would this, just what you said, why would this perfectly wonderful lady do all this? I mean, because it was calculated, it was thought out, and what they realized, but she was diagnosed by 2 different psychiatrists during her legal case, and they found out she had obsessive compulsive personality disorder. We don't argue with that. She had Asperger's syndrome, major depression, a brief psychotic disorder, and marked stressors, and many other diagnoses. Now, and also with our astronauts, we have worshiped them. And during all this, what some of the psychologists had said and psychiatrists said, we've got to quit selling astronauts as heroes, because they're not. Because even back during Buzz Aldrin, he was like during Armstrong time, he basically went through a divorce. Back then they didn't get divorced either, sort of like you don't do that. Well, when he got his divorce, he admitted, he said, and even after landing on the moon, okay, same thing with him. He said, I have alcoholism and depression. And the world went crazy because they could identify with him. And then he said something that made people fall in love with him. He's like, unhappiness runs in my family. Basically, quote unquote. And why did he say that? The whole world fell in love with him because, we've got stuff going on. So he became real. Then there was another astronaut in T-Town or Tuscaloosa, and he was drinking and driving. He got a DUI. He killed 2 little girls, and he they're injured the parents. So, and all this stuff is kind of kept on the DL, but we couldn't keep it on the down low when this knucklehead comes out with her big old murder kit and her wig and all that stuff and her diaper. She did wear a diaper.
So essentially, I can see why Shipman was scared for her life. But it was surprising to me that they would get knocked down from attempted murder to kidnapping when they had such strong evidence. But I guess you looked into
Yeah.
that a little
Oh,
bit
yeah.
more.
Well, during the chaos in the parking deck and between her getting pepper sprayed and just looking like a wild woman because they said she just attacked the car. Why the lady rolled the window down, I'll never know. I
She
wouldn't do
probably
that.
never dreamed in a million years that something like that was going to
Yeah.
happen. And there's that part of us, especially women, that's like, does this person need help? I see that she's crazy.
Mhm.
I'm safe in my car. I've locked the door. Let me just open the window a crack just to make sure. And then that also shows to me just how out of her mind Lisa Nowak was.
Right.
Because again, there's no guarantee that you can even get in the car. How is pepper spraying? Oh, well, I've
Yeah.
shown you. Now you're going to unlock the car
Yeah.
door.
Well,
now that I've pepper sprayed you in the
right.
face.
Right. Well, I don't understand how, like, okay, another woman's going to go kidnap another grown woman. I mean, so what are you going to tie her up with the rubber tubing you got and all that stuff? I mean, you really must have had a lot of confidence in yourself.
Well, and I don't blame Shipman for thinking this lady had ill intentions, had
Duh.
murderous intentions.
No, she
I
didn't.
absolutely would have thought the
Yeah.
same thing. Thank goodness she
Yeah.
didn't succeed for both of their sakes.
Right. Well, during all that running around and being attacked and happening in the parking lot and everything, when she went down to the booth to say, hey, I'm sure she wasn't worried about paying. That's what I'm always worried about, paying.
Well, she probably couldn't even see the booth, much
probably
less her wallet. She's still getting pepper spray out of her face. But no, yes.
Well, she told them this happened, and she talked and talked. So then the security there went to get Lisa. And so when they were, I guess, gathering her up or putting her under arrest or whatever chaos happened, they say, and her attorney said, that they violated her Miranda rights. And so I don't know. That's how I think the charges got knocked down to something. She better be glad they got knocked down to that, because this right here is some messed up thinking. And that's why when people don't have someone to check them, when they're thinking all these bizarre things, and people go, oh, that's just how they think. This is the step to the next step to the next step. This is that type of thinking, that grandiose thinking, and I'm better than you, and I've done this, so I get a free pass. No, you don't.
Well, and it's also short-term thinking because, again, just in her mind, eliminating this romantic rival is going to, bring her ex-boyfriend back to her?
I don't know.
That just because this woman's no longer in the picture, all her dreams are going to come true? It's just so short-sighted. It's as if this, this one, if only this one puzzle piece weren't here, then the rest of the picture will come together.
While I've got a husband and 5-year-old twins and a 14-year-old child at home, it's all going to come together for me. It's not even logical thinking.
Right.
And I think that's when they also, after this with Lisa Nowak, they came in and they implemented a code of conduct for astronauts. They said they didn't have that before. And Lisa and Bill were the first two astronauts to be released from NASA, not just NASA, the Navy. So that means
discharged, on less than honorable circumstances.
Right, and behavior unbecoming of an officer and a gentleman. When I read that, I'm like, I've watched that movie.
Yes.
But I mean, these things that come up, they come from somewhere. I just don't understand if you're an astronaut or a janitor, pharmacist, journalist, teacher, what have you. What gets in people's head where they just ruminate over and over and over, and it usually ends up with something deadly.
I know.
Look
like
at
that
my nephew.
obsessive compulsive behavior.
Yeah, thinking like that over and over and over, and then you legitimize it, and then look what we go through, all this court stuff, and now she tried to kill her. She was going to kidnap her. She clearly had weapons, and she was coming after her with some sort of vengeance. And the poor lady's just over here. But I blame Bill a lot.
Yeah, she was only 30 years old at the time, too. But I felt the same way.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, Bill. Like, you were kind of seeing both of them.
He
You knew the
was.
other one was married. And, people make mistakes. We all live in glass houses. But I am glad that if she was going to get punished for adultery, that he deserved it, too.
He did. And he kind of led her on. He still kept talking with her, and she had a key to his apartment, and he knew that. He could have
That's
changed
why she
the
accessed
locks.
his computer.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He could have changed. I'm so tired of whoever the party is that just going, well, I didn't know. I'm just all that. I'm so hot. Everybody, I can't believe there ain't 10 other astronaut women waiting on me.
Right.
It's just so delusional.
Getting some ego strokes out of it. Yeah.
But I mean, now what's his life like?
Well, I looked into that a little bit, and there was quite a bit of fallout for both of them. As you can imagine, Nowak and her husband divorced in 2008, the next year. And in 2010, Shipman and Oeffeling actually married and moved to Alaska. That's where they live now with their son. They, like you said, they're both discharged from the Navy for adultery. Lisa's living outside of Houston in a modest 4-bedroom house. She's got a quiet life. This is according to an article that I found in People magazine, and she's working in the private sector. She's 59 years old. Her children are fully grown. Her son's now 30. Her twin daughters are now 21. And apparently she avoids the media. You can imagine why. But that she had a representative tell people that she is, quote, finally at peace and living a quiet life, and end quote. Colleen Shipman, Opheline, I think, I guess is how you say her name, told People in 2016. Apparently it's the only interview she's ever given too, but she said after the attack, she thought, quote, I'm going to be okay, but recalls it was never okay after that. And they actually got married in 2010. They run a website called adventurewrite.com. It promotes writing and kids. Shipman works as a writer, and she published her first novel, Eerie, in December of 2015 under the pen name C.M. McCoy. And anyway, like I said, they have a son. So, that didn't deter their relationship. Whenever Nowak thought she was going to accomplish, it seemed to have brought those two even closer together.
Yeah, I don't think they expected this, really. I mean, and he was kind of a cad, in my opinion, to keep messing with her and keep going back and this, that, and the other. But regardless of what someone else is doing, it's your behavior. I mean, this was an elaborate plan. This was a well thought out plan, and it was to kill somebody.
Yeah, and I don't understand with these love triangles why the person, the perpetrator, if you will, thinks that eliminating the other person is going to solve everything. If somebody is choosing someone over you, then obviously that's not working out between you two. Whether it's this person or another person, what are you going to do? Just eliminate every person that they're attracted to for the rest of your life? That just, again, not long-term thinking.
Right. Exactly why she was dismissed from NASA and the Navy, and him too, because he wasn't long-term thinking either. He was almost like, I'm untouchable. I'll do what I want, when I want, and how I want it, which is what a lot of these folks in these things do. So he's not without blame either, but he isn't the one that was gathering up a murder kit and a knife and rubber tubing and going in disguise. I mean, think how elaborate that was. And she did not want to stop to have to time from Houston to Orlando to get there for her flight. That is diabolical to me. She deserved more than what happened to her.
She got lucky that
she did get lucky.
Yeah, only got what she got. Any takeaways for you, Pam?
I go where I'm celebrated, not tolerated, and I don't want to be somewhere that somebody doesn't want me. And hey, life moves on. Other people, people falling in and out of love all the time. We see that talking about these stories. But you don't get to go kill people, and you don't get to go plan an elaborate, secret squirrel mission where you're going to go kill them.
I agree. Yeah, my takeaways are, if you find yourself into that rut, into that thinking of like, this is the only thing that's going to solve my problem, then seek help.
Yeah.
I mean, my gosh, I think, certainly when we're younger, I can relate to a bad breakup. I can understand having your heart broken and trying to understand why and not wanting to feel that pain.
Yeah.
But I never looked at it as anybody else's problem but my own. Like, I need to deal with this and move on. But I've never understood, going back to when I was a little kid, why especially women blame other women. If your man likes another woman, sayonara, sir. Get it.
Or
Best of
deal with
luck.
him. He's the problem. He's
Right.
he's the thing that's mutual or the common thing. Or maybe something's wrong with me because I just don't care. I'm done. I'll move on. I don't live backwards.
Well, and that was stuff that I saw in middle school. I saw girls fight over boys, and I'm like, gross. Why? I
because
just
it gets in their heart. It gets in their little heart and stuff. And as you mature, this lady's 44 years old.
That's what it got me
Yeah.
too. I'm like, come on now.
Yeah. I know.
Tighten up. Get it together.
I don't know, but all I do know is if you go to Google and you type in diaper and astronaut, you can tell the story.
Absolutely. And I never realized that she had, through her attorney, denied wearing the diaper. But I mean,
Yeah.
I guess I can't really blame her. I wouldn't want that to be all the people remembered me for,
Well, it
because
is.
it
though.
is.
Yeah. Well, and that's what she takes away from all this. Don't say I was wearing a diaper.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't just the denial of wearing the diaper. I think the attorney also tried to spin it that she didn't actually pepper spray her. So trying to paint this picture, well, it was just an argument between two lovers. And in fact, even Nowak said outside of the courtroom, she issued an apology to Shipman. And I just am curious, what you think about this. Quote, I know this has also been very hard for Colleen Shipman, and I would like her to know how very sorry I am for having frightened her in any way, and about the subsequent public harassment that has followed all of us, end quote, Nowak told reporters. So to me, that again says, just the fact that she says, frightened her in any way. Like, of
Mm,
course you frightened
yeah,
her. Of
yeah.
course. Like, oh, did that make you nervous when I wore a wig and wore a diaper and traveled across the country to chase you down in an airport parking lot and pepper spray you? Did that frighten you? Well,
sorry.
in case it did.
That's right. How nice of her is what I say on there. But I mean, my goodness, she's going to be traumatized forever. But that's a case of where we talk about the narrative again, because she's using words like frightened. No, you frightened. You scared the out of her. And she will always be looking over her shoulder when she hears even the fall of a lady's footsteps behind her and stuff. I just think she's still delusional.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thank you so much, Pam. I appreciate you joining us for this episode.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining as well. That is it for Diaper Wearing Astronaut, an out of this world love triangle. Thank you for joining us on Gulf Coast Confidential. I'm your host, writer, and producer, Molly Barrows, with co-host and researcher Pam Hill. And a big thanks to director, editor, and production engineer James Roy. Remember, you can listen to more of Gulf Coast Confidential wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. And you can also watch on the Gulf Coast Confidential YouTube channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.